Thank you for tuning in to watch this latest Emerging Threats Group video. We thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen, and in this naval battle we will see the US Navy's destroyers. These ones are armed with hypothetical weapons and futuristic weapons against the People's Liberation Army Navy Shandong Carrier Strike Group. The Chinese force is unchanged from our last two videos, but our US destroyers are armed with some very different weapon systems. These include the long-range anti-ship missile Bravo model, which has a range of about 300 nautical miles and does have a higher cross-section, but has a top speed of well over 1,000 knots, as you will see demonstrated in this video. It should make it more survivable. We also have direct energy weapons, such as the Helios, which is a 150 kilowatt laser, and we have the closest thing to railguns we can possibly manage in the Command Modern Operations database, the hyper-velocity projectiles. We have two variants of those. Our B-21 Raiders will also make another appearance. Our USS Zumwalt has been upgraded with Spy 6 radars. It also has access to enhanced SAMs, including SM-6 Block 1Bs, and all our destroyers have access to enhanced Sea Sparrow missiles, the Block II model, which is the active radar homing variant. We also have some of our destroyers armed with SM-6 Dual 2 missiles, which in theory are an upgrade on the Dual 1 models. Two of our Arleigh Burkes destroyers are mostly unchanged from the previous videos, apart from the enhanced Sea Sparrow upgrade. However, one of our Arleigh Burkes has been replaced by a Flight III, which is the USS Jack H. Lucas. This has the 127mm railguns on board and a few of the enhanced SAMs, and as you can see from the loadout, all of our long-range anti-ship missiles have been replaced by the Bravo model. Our UASs are mostly unchanged from the first video. We no longer have the Valkyries or Have Raiders, however we do have two V247 Vigilant UASs. These are on board our destroyers, replacing two of the Seahawks. These are hypothetical VTOLs, which have access to naval strike missiles, as well as the same radar as the MQ-8C. Our two Raiders are going to be armed with a mixture of AIM-260s and GBU-53 Stormbreakers. We also have our RQ-180, which we've armed with F-35 tech, but it is an unarmed system. Our People's Liberation Army Navy forces are unchanged, and the weather is also unchanged. First of all, I'll give you an overview of what we've done to our RQ-180. It has been upgraded with F-35 technology, including the APG-85 AESA radar. It also has access to a lint, such as the 239 Barracuda in this case. It also has the F-35 IRST, EOST, and the EODAS modifications. In terms of communications links, it has MADL, which is what the F-35 also has, and it has access to CEC, meaning that it should be able to direct US Navy fires at long range in ways the E2 can, but this is a far stealthier platform. If we go down to its radar cross-section, it's one of the stealthiest units in the game. It's only really beaten out by the B-21 Raider, and it's probably comparable to, say, the F-35. Now we'll go over what our upgrades to our destroyers are very quickly. So you'll see here the USS Jack H. Lucas, armed with a 150 kilowatt laser weapon. It is worth pointing out that I think the highest kilowatt you can manage in Command Modern Operations at the moment is about 300 kilowatts. Therefore, and I do believe that laser can't target munitions, so we have gone for the Helios, in this case 150 kilowatt. So looking on research online, it seems to suggest that at least 300 kilowatts and maybe as much as 1 to 2 megawatts is needed to intercept enemy cruise, supersonic and ballistic or hypersonic missiles. So it is worth pointing out that CMO doesn't really yet differentiate between the amount of kilowatts involved. The ranges are pretty similar on all involved, and these lasers are interchangeable at this point, regardless of what the kilowatt is. This may be changed in future updates, but it's worth pointing out you will see 150 kilowatt lasers destroy things that they're probably not going to be capable of destroying in real life at this point. However, we have access to our railgun type weaponry. The 127mm has a range of 41 nautical miles against air, land and surface targets. And meanwhile, our 155mm variant, which is what the Zumwalt is carrying, has a longer range of up to 70 nautical miles. Again, these can literally target almost anything apart from submerged submarines and maybe satellites. You'll see them in action against Chinese missiles, I am sure, in this. Coming up from the south, coming up from our base in Australia, we do have two B-21 Raiders even. They are armed with AIM 260s and almost 100 Stormbreakers between them. So without any further hesitation, we will kick off this scenario. And what you will also see here are our UASs on board. First thing we're going to do is get a pair of MQ-8Cs airborne and get our V-247s also airborne, so you can get a better look at these. It's worth pointing out that in this scenario, if our long-range anti-ship missile strike does fail against the Chinese, we will be closing into guns range. Only our guns have a longer range than anything the Chinese have, so we do have the advantage there. We're also going to move our RQ-180 down, and our bombers are also moving up into position. First things first, we do want to get a bead on the Chinese fleet, as we have done in the previous videos. And yes, let's find out more about these V-247s. So these are, at the moment, a hypothetical UAV. I believe there may be some, maybe in prototype stage right now, but they may not even be in that. Their AESA radar does have a long range, it is the same as the MQ-8C. And they also have other sensors on board that should make them very suited for doing scouting roles. They can also carry more weaponry than the MQ-8C and a wider variety of weaponry. They're not stealthy particularly, but they do have a small radar cross-section just because of their small size. And they do have other features that make them harder to detect via IR means as well. First things first. We'll keep them at low altitude, but we will send them into range of the Chinese fleet. While we're waiting for this, we will speed up the simulation. Once again, we have detected the Chinese helicopters, and we also have detected the Chinese airborne early warning system. Here come the J-15s, and what we're going to try and do is take them out with our raiders. In fact, we have 4 J-15s now on radar. And we also have the KJ-600. All of these, which hopefully our raiders will be able to neutralise before they destroy my UAS forces. We'll speed up the raiders and try and get them into firing range. Meanwhile, our vigilance are coming in at fairly low level. We're not sending them down to wave top height yet, although that might be necessary, seeing as the Chinese J-15s do look like they may be coming for them. We have sent one of these up to 12,000 feet. We'll deploy its radar now. May also distract the Chinese fighters. And it does look like our forces may now be getting into range, but we're going to hold off firing until they're in no escape zone. We are now getting a bead on the Chinese ships. We haven't yet classified them. That is coming from the APG-85 AESA radar. Again, this is probably one of the most advanced radars in the database right now. The only thing I'm going to try and do is try and skirt the RQ-180 around the Chinese fighters a bit. I'd rather not lose this UAS. Certainly not this early on. Our raiders are coming into firing range on the first 2, but so again, let's try and speed it up to get in closer range. We are also going to fire up the radars, which are the same radars that the normal F-35 carries, not the upgraded F-35, however. And we will send these down to low level, might give them a little bit more survivability against the J-15s. However, our raiders we're going to keep as high as we can. So So the AIMS 260s are firing. They are a lofted profile. There goes one J-15. Scratcher's second one. And looks like they are also closing in to destroy the Chinese KJ-600. Whether or not I'll have enough velocity to do that, I doubt it, but you never know, they might get lucky. Fortunately, we might be about to see the death of my vigilant UASs rather early. I mean, one thing they're still not in range of their naval strike missiles, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd be tempted to fire them off right now. They do have a range of 150 nautical miles though, and they are stealthy. In fact, they are very stealthy missiles, even stealthier than perhaps the long-range anti-ship missile is. And they can be carried by some of the F-35 variants as well. There's certainly an upgrade on the old Harpoons that some of our aircraft can carry. Okay, so let's try and take out that airborne early warning aircraft, and also try and take out those J-15s. Unfortunately, both my vigilants have been destroyed. However, we have got a bead on the Chinese fleet, and they are now coming into long-range anti-ship missile Bravo range. We're not going to fire quite yet. In fact, first of all, let's try and get rid of these J-15s before they take out any more of my UASs. We do have another two MQ-8Cs ready to... well, I say they're ready to go. One will be ready to go shortly, one probably won't be in this scenario. And for when we get into the fun of going into guns range, I have actually I have armed my Seahawks with joint air-to-ground missiles. Again, how much use those will be, if they're actually even survivable, the Seahawks or the missiles, we'll find out. I might not expect them to survive, but it's at least worth seeing if they are able to have any effect at all on the Chinese fleet after we've burned through their SAMs. Hopefully we can take out another two J-15s here. Yep, scratch one J-15. As if we destroy this one, I'll reposition my raiders down to the south, and then we can start to plan our attack. Fortunately, both of those missiles missed. It looks like their final probability of kill was 44%, and they didn't quite manage that, unfortunately. Okay, that is the J-15 destroyed. We still have 16 JATMs left. And we can probably take out this Chinese sharp sword UAS as well. It is worth looking at this UAS. It is quite an advanced one. It does have access to AESA radars and sensor packages, and the version in command modifications is now carrier capable. In some ways, you could see it as a Chinese version of an MQ-25 Stingray. I do believe there is also a variant which has a tanker capability. In fact, there is there. Again, whether or not the Chinese have actually managed to test them on a carrier in real life yet is unclear. But they do have a relatively small radar cross-section. Yeah, I mean, it's probably, again, they're not as stealthy as an F-35 or a B-21. But they are stealthier than, say, a Valkyrie or a Hav Raider. And this one seems to be very slippery, avoiding plenty of our missiles. See if we can't kill this thing. Yep, there we go. And now we can also try and take out this other Chinese airborne early warning aircraft. Their E-2D equivalent. As we've seen in other videos, this does have a very long range AESA radar. It is a highly advanced system, but the airframe itself isn't exactly survivable in modern conflict. So we are now going to move our B-21s. We are going to launch one missile against that. Does look like it might be too low altitude actually. Once it gets up to altitude, our AIM-260 should automatically fire and hopefully destroy it. We will speed up the simulation once again. In fact, it does look like we may have to descend our B-21s. There we are. Hopefully at that short range. Oh, it missed. That's rather annoying. We have burned through more AIM-260s than I'd prefer to do in this circumstance, I must admit. Okay, we're firing at almost point blank range now. Surely this has got to kill it. Yep, there we go. And now we are going to maneuver our B-21s into Stormbreaker range. Stormbreakers themselves, their range is pretty good in this. It's about 60 nautical miles actually. I think they've expanded that. And they do have various different ways of finding their target. They have an active radar seeker, they also have imaging and laser guidance capabilities. They have they have a 48 kilogram warhead in this. They can be used against various different systems and can be carried in great numbers by multiple different platforms. What we are going to do here is try and saturate the Chinese SAMs with them. I expect the Chinese will destroy most, if not all, of these Stormbreakers. But again, if they have to fire over 100 SAMs to destroy just under 100 Stormbreakers, then that's not bad value for money, shall we say. I think Stormbreaker is probably about a $250,000 weapon. The long-range anti-ship missile Bravo model, we don't actually know how much that would have cost. It was cancelled around 2010, 2011, maybe 2012 time, if I remember correctly. It probably would have cost more than the normal AGM-158C. Therefore, you're probably looking at least $3 to $5 million a pop for one of those. So what we are going to do is unleash our bombardment. So we're going to unleash 8 against each of the Chinese frigates. And we're going to fire about 20 each at the Type 55 destroyer. As in the previous video, we do want to fire a lot against the Chinese carrier. We're going to fire I'm going to fire 38 from that one, and we'll fire another 24 from this destroyer as well. And we'll fire 12 at one the Type, or 10 at one the Type 52s. And we'll fire another 8 at that Type 52. We'll fire 4 at the Chinese supply ship, as we have in previous videos. Then we'll see how many we've fired at that. So we have 8 spare, and we may just assign another 2 to each frigate. And then, just to round things off, we'll fire the remaining ones at that carrier. So once again, we are firing over 60 missiles straight at the Chinese carrier. The good thing is these missiles, should they hit a target that has been killed, or aim for a target that has been killed, they should then reorientate themselves to hit a different target. My B-21s are now in range. I'm going to pull them back slightly. They're a little bit too close for comfort. As you may remember in the other video I've created, I did lose one of my B-21s, mostly due to my own stupidity. Or my own lack of micromanagement. So in this case, let's check the range. As you can see, these missiles are a lot faster than their counterparts. Their speed is Mach 1.75. They're doing almost 1200 knots at sea level. So they've got about 150 miles to go. I mean, I'm not the best at maths, but the Stormbreakers probably won't travel at much more than 500 knots, meaning that we probably want to wait a moment or so to fire our Stormbreakers, but we do want to let the Chinese fire a lot of their missiles at those first if we can. In fact, we will now start to unleash these. So, as you may recognise from the other missions that we've carried out, the Type 55 destroyers are rather tough to kill, and therefore we're going to release a lot of Stormbreakers against those. We'll fire a few against the enemy frigates. Again, they're not such a high threat. And we'll also fire a few, or pretty much all our remaining Stormbreakers against the enemy carrier. Our Stormbreakers are now heading into their targets. Meanwhile, our long-range anti-ship missiles are also closing in. And we have taken out the Chinese J6 or the Chinese airborne early warning aircraft, and they have no J-15s left. It looks like the Chinese fire control radars are coming online. I imagine they're aiming at the Stormbreakers rather than the B-21s, but again, we have got a little bit too close to comfort for my liking there. We are going to move those aircraft away. Yep, so again, the more SAMs the Chinese fire at our Stormbreakers, the better. And it's time to turn our B-21s around and unleash our final Stormbreakers that they didn't get a chance to fire. In fact, it does like our B-21s are trying to dodge automatically, which I'd rather not them do in this case. So yeah, let's fire all of our 14 Stormbreakers on that against the Type 55, and the rest can go against the carrier for simplicity reasons. Okay, so now the Chinese have picked up our bombardment of long-range anti-ship missiles. Let's see how successful these are. They are getting close to the Chinese ships, but you can see the amount of SAMs the Chinese are firing here. Once we get a second, I will look at the expenditures. But right now it is just good to see how many missiles we are launching. Again, it doesn't look like many of them will make it through. So it does seem that even speed in this case may not get through an alerted enemy. Come on, at least one of them's got to hit that carrier, surely. Well, we have hit a Type 55, that's not a bad start, and we have also hit a Chinese carrier as well. So Zhong has taken damage. And now our Stormbreakers are also coming in to add to the chaos. Does look like the Chinese have jammed their radars on them, but they have other ways of finding their targets. And we are now going to send our B-21s back to our destroyers. That way, if the Chinese do launch any missiles against our forces, they should be able to use their remaining 8 AIM-260s to disrupt those. It does look like we have sunk probably 3 Chinese vessels there. Let's have a look. Yep, so we have destroyed a Type 55 and also both Type 54 frigates. How much damage we've done to the carrier, it's not yet known. Yeah, the BDA is unknown at this time. I could maybe have a look with my B-21s, but I'd rather not lose those. We will move the RQ-180 closer in though, and we'll also move our UASs closer in as well. So, but now it's time to close into guns range. So we're going to go to flank speed, and we are going to speed up the scenario a bit here. So we do want to see just how effective our railguns can be. So our RQ-180 is now close. Still haven't got an accurate BDA on this. Again, I'd rather not lose this if I can avoid it, so nope. And what we will also do is review TAC view. Let's see if we can get how close we can get our destroyers. So it's possible the Chinese may start shooting missiles at us. Oh, it does look another Chinese ship may have sunk there. We may have also taken out a Type 52C. Yep, so it does look like the Chinese are down to one Type 55. Oh, and we've just taken out the Shandong as well. Excellent, it must have sunk from its damage. However, we are not done yet. We're going to finish off this Chinese force. Does mean that our chance of getting attacked by the Chinese has now lessened. So we can relax a little bit more. Hopefully, the Chinese won't be able to launch that many anti-ship missiles at us, but if they do, our railguns and lasers, as well as our SAMs, should help to neutralize them. Okay. Again, let's see if we can't get a BDA on the remaining Chinese vessels. They suggest that that one has no damage, the Type 55, and also the other two vessels may also have no damage as well. They do still have some helicopters up, and now we've still got about another 100 miles to go before we can utilize our railguns. What we could do right now, but I probably won't, is maybe use these SAMs here. So these are probably some of the most advanced American SAMs in the database. It is the latest SM6 model. It can hit air, surface and land targets. Whether or not it can do these cost effectively is unknown at this time, but it is certainly a jack of all trades weapon. It also has the ability to hit incoming missiles as well, and it is a very unique capability. There aren't many missiles out there that can hit land, sea and air targets and still take out missiles as well. So again, if we did want to fire some of these weaponry, we could. Whether or not they'll actually have the range to do it, I'm not sure. They might burn out before that, but we'll give it a go. No, it does look like we did hit a Chinese ship with it. We have damaged a Type 52. There we go, that was good shooting. I didn't expect them to work that well. So the Chinese must be out of SAMs, if not very low on them. So if we check the expenditures here, they have fired over 200, well, they have fired their full complement of 240 HQ-9 Bravos. They've fired plenty of HQ-10s as well, which is their very short-range SAM, a bit like a CRAM, and they've also fired plenty of other of their advanced SAMs. So it is possible the Chinese are now surviving on either very little or no SAMs whatsoever. Again, we will see if we can take out this Type 52. We'll launch our remaining 6 SM6s against it. They are taking a lofted profile against it. They will be coming down from almost ballistic altitudes, and they are pretty high speed weapons as well. Surely they've got to sink this vessel now. 6 of them coming in at that many knots should do the job. Yep, it looks like 4 of them were enough to do the job. Okay, but we do want to get in railgun range. So once again, let's speed up the simulation. Our Zumwalt, who is leading the charge. And we'll also move our raiders in. And we'll pull our UASs back slightly. We don't want them to get shot down by any Chinese gunners that may have saved a SAM or two. So we are now closing into certainly the Zumwalt's railgun range. Yep, I reckon that's firing range. So what you'll see here is the Zumwalt. Maybe not quite yet. We are getting close to it though. What you will know is, if you've been keeping track of the naval news, is that the Zumwalt class is going to be upgraded, and it's it never actually got any railguns. In fact, the guns it did get, as far as we're aware, never actually received any shells, I don't think. So there is a variant in the database which has the more advanced radars and has hypothetical, or currently anyway, but it certainly has the hypersonic weaponry. It also does have maritime strike tomahawks, and it has been upgraded with more advanced SAM systems. But yeah, certainly one of the big upgrades on it is its ability to carry hypervelocity missiles, or hypersonic missiles, sorry. So this is a 2,000 nautical mile range weapon. It isn't capable of targeting ships, certainly not at this stage anyway, so that's the reason we haven't included it in this scenario. But again, it is excellent for taking out long range I'll start again. It is excellent at taking out enemy land structures, even potentially taking out vehicles as well. I mean, it is a very rapid weapon, and it has a very good CEP as well, so it should hit its target. So yeah, that is a variant of the Zumwalt, which the US Navy are apparently actually upgrading now. However, we are just interested in the railguns right now. So two of our destroyers look like they've got a bit lost. I wonder why that is. I think they're trying to avoid the islands a bit better. Okay, and USS Zumwalt is now in railgun range. Time to open fire. And here go our railguns. They are capable of firing at they come out the gun at well over 2,000 knots. They will slow down, a fair amount by the time they reach their target, but they may also speed up again slightly when they're coming in towards the enemy vessels and losing altitude. Maybe not quite, but still over 1,000 knots of they're still coming in at around about 1,000 knots, and they are doing a lot of damage. What we will do is close in with our UASs, try and get a better battle damage reading. One thing you haven't seen them do, unfortunately, is take out any air targets, but they are also quite proficient at that. In fact, I'm sure in the future we'll do a video where we demonstrate the Chinese DF-26 anti-ship ballistic missile, which has been in the news a lot recently. And one of the tests we'll do is put it up against the HVPs here. One thing we're also going to do is take out this Chinese supply ship with some more of our SM6s. As you can see here, the Chinese crew on the destroyer are probably not having a great day right now. The game has estimated that the Chinese Type 55 has received medium damage. And let's just see how many shells we have actually fired so far. We have fired about 100 of those shells. They don't have a huge warhead on them, in fairness, but they do have high speed. Yeah, it's only a 7 kilogram shell, but as stated before, they can literally hit almost any target out there. They are doing considerable damage to the Chinese. Some of the weapons are missing, but plenty of them are also hitting. It does look like our UAS has got close enough, and it does look like the Chinese ship is now flooding. And we may as well finish off this Chinese supply ship. And as you can see, these weapons are also data linked, which is why they can also hit moving targets such as aircraft and missiles. It's worth pointing out that I didn't realise quite how effective these SM6s would be against ships. I didn't think their warheads would be big enough to do too much damage, but looks like they have been pretty useful. And we should now be arranged to launch more of our SAMs in anti-surface mode against the Type 55. Doesn't look like it's going to have a great day because of all the railgun projectiles hitting it, but now it's time to really drive the nail into its coffin. Here come our SM6s, coming down from over 100,000 feet. Surely this Chinese supply ship can't take more than 2 of these. No, looks like it's sinking. Yeah, it's still just about hanging in there. Oh, and our SM-6 has finished off the job which the hyper-velocity projectiles have started. And now the railguns are engaging the Chinese vessel as well. And you've just seen them take out one of the helicopters, I believe, there. In fact, we can probably just check that. Yep, looks like our railgun successfully destroyed one of the Chinese helicopters. Again, you do not want to get in the way of these things. They will destroy pretty much anything. Another thing you didn't really get to see in this is the effectiveness of the direct energy weapons against missiles, but again, we'll certainly showcase that in future videos, especially against the Chinese ballistic missile threat. So surely the ship can't take much more punishment. In fact, I'm sure we can probably unleash a few more SAMs against them, if we have any left. No, it does look like we have fired all our SM-6s. So it looks like it's up to the railguns to finish this off. It is worth pointing out that the Zumwalts in this game do actually have several different types of advanced gun system, as it's known as. So we are testing out the railgun one here, which has a range of about 70 nautical miles. There is the more realistic variant, which does actually have a longer range against land targets of 85 nautical miles. But it does have a short range against anti-surface targets and can't hit any aircraft or anything like that. I believe these are the shells that they worked out would have cost about $1 million a pop or something along those kind of lines. So this Chinese ship is slowly but surely sinking into a watery grave. Surely they can't take much more punishment. RQ-180, despite the fact on TAC view does look like an MQ-9 or an MQ-1, is actually more of a flat wing design. In fact, many people call it an elongated or a bigger RQ-170, which explains why it's so stealthy. And as we see here, it has now got heavy damage. Surely there can't be much left of it. So if we click on this, we can see which of our sensors is picking it up. And it does look like it's coming in from AESA radars and all kinds of imaging as well. There's certainly no hiding for this ship. And we'll speed up the simulation now. And there goes the Chinese ship. Every single Chinese ship has been destroyed. And they barely even got a shot off against our destroyers. In fact, they may not have even managed to fire an anti-surface missile against us. If we look here, they shot down 2 of our UAVs. But they didn't manage to kill anything else. And if we look down at their expenditures, yep, not a single Chinese anti-ship missile was fired, and they expended all their SAMs on our Stormbreakers as we hoped for, and on some of our long-range anti-ship missiles as well. And it looks like we fired off almost 300 railgun projectiles. All in all, it has been a very good day for the US Navy. It's probably one of their most successful days. Hopefully the US taxpayer will be happy as well. We didn't lose any B-21 Raiders in this. And although we did fire off a fair few railgun shots, we didn't use, and we did also use some SN6s. Most of our SAMs are still intact, so if the Chinese did launch a follow-up attack, they should still be in a good way to defend themselves. But yes, thank you for watching this Emerging Threats Group video, and once again, chalk up a success for the US Navy.